Hello everyone, what's up? Today I wish to explain how to use JSP and Servlet with Web.xml. What is Web.xml? Web.xml is called as deployment descriptor file and it is an XML file that contains information on the configuration of the web application, including the configuration of Servlet. The web.xml file must reside in the webinf directory under the content of the hierarchy of directories that exist for a web application. The web.xml file does not represent the entity configuration that is available for the web application. There are other servlet filters and listeners that can be defined using programmatic configurations, annotation, and web fragments. Servlet with web.xml. A mapping between URL paths and the servlet that processes requests with URLs is defined in web.xml. The web server calls the class method that corresponds to the request method using this configuration to determine which servlet will handle a particular request. For HTTP GET request, for instance, use the doGet method. This is an example for servlet init parameters. We can pass parameters to a servlet from the web.xml file. The init parameters of a servlet can only be accessed by that servlet. There is how you configure them in the web.xml file. You can see an example here. Servlet context parameters. Servlet context parameters is intent for global servlet parameters. There is no way to include them with an annotation. That is why we need to add the servlet context parameters in the web.xml file, also known as the servlet descriptor. This is an example for that. Load on startup in web.xml. The load on startup is the sub-attribute of servlet attribute in web.xml. It is used to control when the web server loaded the servlet. As we discussed, that servlet is loaded at the time of first request. In this case, response time is increased for first request. If load on a startup is specified for a servlet in web.xml, then this servlet will be loaded when the server starts, so the response time will not increase for first request. Any positive or negative value can be passed in the load on startup. If positive value is passed, then all servlet having load on a startup sub-attribute will be loaded when server starts, but a servlet having low positive value will be loaded first. In case of negative value, servlet will be loaded at the time of first request. This is an example for that code. JSP with web.xml. JSP URL mapping and automated compilation are supported by App Engine, a JSP file with the extension .jsp in the application's var. JSP is automatically converted into a servlet class and assigned a URL path that corresponds to the path from the var root to the JSP file. You can specify the mapping directly by declaring it with an element that contains the path of JSP file from the var root if you want additional control of how the JSP is mapped to a URL. This is an example for that code. JSP init parameters. In JSP, config is an implicit object of type servlet config. This object can be used to get initialization parameters for a particular JSP page. The config object is created by the web container for each JSP page. Generally, it is used to get initialization parameters from the web.xml file. This is an example. Thanks for watching my video.